for the blizzard we supposed to get?
Start?
Yes, sir. Yes,
We're
ma'am.
good.
Okay, so I'm calling to order the meeting of the City of Waynesboro Planning Commission. It's a regular meeting for Tuesday, December 15th, 2020. Does someone want to move to adopt the agenda?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Everybody not in favor? The agenda is adopted. Has everyone had a chance to review the minutes from the last meeting? Someone want to make a motion to approve them?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second. I'm trying to.
Everyone in favor of approving the minutes from the meeting held October 20th, 2020?
Aye.
Aye.
Everyone not in favor? The minutes are approved. We have a public comment period. Do we need to wait a minute to see if someone calls in, or would they have?
Let me really quickly put up the put up the number. So if you would like to comment on the public comment period or later during one of the public hearings, this will be the number to call. And then when you're prompted, please press this meeting ID. Somebody's computer is not filtering out the sound.
It'd be me. My dog is beside me.
I just hear myself talking back to myself.
Oh.
Right,
Okay.
so-
I don't think we have any comments, so I guess we need to do a public hearing on zoning text amendment request by Riverbend Development applicant to amend City Code Section 98.5.1.5.A.3 (G) to replace shall not exceed 25% of the lot width shall not exceed 12 feet or 25% of the lot width, whichever is greater. So, hang on, I gotta look at my notes. We haven't had a public hearing in a while. Okay, so I guess Luke, you talk to us, Luke or Kira, you talk to us about this a little bit next.
Sure. Kira had originally put this right after the Creekwood Village preliminary plat, and I switched them around, and now I'm thinking maybe Kira was right about that. So, because it doesn't make a whole lot of sense until we talk about the Creekwood Village plat. So if y'all don't mind, I'm going to go ahead. We can do the public hearings in this order, but I am going to go ahead and present on both of those subjects, and I'll talk about the.
So you can present the whole thing, and then we can have two public hearings in a row?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
And I'm still hearing my voice back through the on a delay. Very confusing.
Luke, when we mute Stevens, can you still hear the feedback?
Let's see. Yeah, I'm still hearing a delay. Well, some kind of delay. I'm not sure. Give it just a minute. It's catching up to when you muted. Yeah, no, I'm still hearing it. It must not be Steven's computer. Must be another one. Go ahead and unmute him. All right, I'll roll with it. Let's go ahead and talk about Creekwood Village then. So this is an application for a major subdivision, and attached to it is an application for a zoning text amendment. You should be very familiar with the property and the location of the property. We just approved a rezoning for it a few months ago, behind Walmart, between Rosser Avenue and the Lewitt Boulevard. Here it is in sort of 3D view on Google Earth. All of this property right here. Again, the rezoning was approved in August of 2020. In the case of a rezoning, I told you that we didn't need to deal with the details of the development that were that were dealt with in our ordinance, but we did have discretion about whether to approve it. We're in the exact opposite situation now. We are going to talk about details, but there's no discretion to just approve or disapprove the development. What we have to approve is whatever conforms to the city's zoning and subdivision ordinance. So we've been working with the applicant for a couple months now, and staff feels that the application now meets the provisions of the city's ordinances. There were a few proffers that came along with that rezoning, which have been addressed in this subdivision. One of those is that there was a conceptual site plan that the subdivision had to be in general conformance with, and we think that they are in general conformance with that site plan, though some of the roads have been, the exact location has been tweaked because of topography. They had to provide a pocket park that would be owned and maintained by the homeowners association that would be at least 30,000 square feet large. They had to provide a number of traffic improvements that would be handled as part of the public improvement plan, so you won't be seeing details on a lot of those. And then they also had to construct a multi-use path along the main road and make some land available to the city for future recreational purposes. So that section of the property is not being subdivided at this time. So those are all of the proffers there. Let's see if I can just... The subdivision has been renamed Creekwood Village, so we will not be referring to it as the Carpo Farm property. Again, this is a by right subdivision, and there are no waivers requested. Council has to approve the subdivision if it conforms to the zoning and subdivision ordinances. The roads differ slightly from the original plan, as I mentioned, to accommodate the terrain. It still includes all the necessary connections discussed in the rezoning.
That's not helping either.
The roads will be 26 feet wide in accordance with the new subdivision ordinance and the fire code. And, all right, sorry, actually I'm going to turn this off again. See if that fixes it. All right, the roads will be 26 feet wide in accordance with the new ordinance and the fire code, and we'll have parallel parking on one side of the street, so similar to a lot of the other newer subdivisions that we've approved recently. Yeah, I think I fixed it. And the main road from Lewitt Boulevard to Rosser Avenue will have to be connected by phase 2. So in phase 1 of their development, they'll be building sort of east from Lewitt Boulevard and straight north to try to get to a stormwater pond. And then in phase 2, they'll connect this road to Tiffany Drive, so that there won't be too many lots on just one connection. This is just a little bit of a clip of the subdivision ordinance. You can see on this north side here, this little dotted part is the multi-use path that was proffered, and that'll be running along the north side of this road. And they've kept it on the north side where they're the fewest lots, so it'll be usable. The subdivision will create 208 residential lots with a mix of housing types. You'll recall that their traffic impact analysis allowed for 600 total lots. In this case, they're only dedicating 200 of those. They're well below all the traffic warrants. They do have a section of multifamily zoning, which in the future they'll be able to develop, where they could probably get another 200 or so lots. But right now, we're just focusing on these 200 lots. There are 62 single-family detached lots, 110 single-family attached or villa lots, and 36 townhouse lots. The original site plan showed all single-family attached. That's sort of the standard product that they were offering, but they've kept the density the same, but added some more single-family and some townhouses. So you can see examples of what those lots might look like. They're mixed together throughout the subdivision, which is great in some ways. It will help to create a lot of different housing options for folks and create more of a mixed income neighborhood. Up here you see townhouses, and the layout and design of these townhouses will be very similar to the other townhouses we've approved in the city, such as the ones up at Evershire. Down here you can see an example of single-family attached. Again, it's 2 homes, two attached homes. You might call them a duplex if you just saw them, but the difference is that there's actually a property line down the middle. And then these are examples of the single-family home lots. The proposed text amendment that goes along with this is for the driveway width. Currently, our ordinance says that for single-family attached, let's see here, zero lot line houses, two-family duplexes, and corner lot duplexes, the maximum width of impervious vehicular travelways and parking areas located within the required front yard setback shall not exceed 25% of the lot width. A lot of details and sort of legalese there, but essentially, the driveway can't be wider than 1/4 of the lot width. Now, that's fine for most of these housing types, but it creates a little bit of an issue for single-family attached. So with single-family detached, zero lot line houses, two-family homes, all the others, basically, you need at least a 50-foot wide lot. 25% of 50 feet is 12.5 feet. That's plenty wide to be able to have a driveway. Single-family attached houses are meant to be built on lots as narrow as 25 feet, since they're essentially two-family homes with a lot line through the middle. So in this case, you can see that these lots are only about 30 to 35 feet wide. In that case, 25% of the width of those lots is less than the width of a typical one-car driveway. So it's impossible for them to serve a garage or put a driveway in at all. But our code requires them to provide off-street parking. It doesn't allow for the construction of alleys. So somehow they have to provide driveways and parking. But if they are not allowed to construct a driveway that's wide enough for a car, that presents a problem. Again, this is only a problem for single-family attached. All the other housing types, for various reasons, because of the required lot width, this doesn't become an issue. So we are proposing to insert a text amendment that would insert a minimum width that driveways could be. So we would say that the driveways couldn't be more than 25% of the lot width or a minimum width, whichever was wider. The applicant's requested minimum width is 12 feet. You can see a typical 12-foot driveway on this drawing up here. You can see that still leaves, and I believe these lots are about 35 feet wide. It still leaves quite a bit of yard area. 12 feet, just to give you a sense of how wide that is, that's about the same as a typical interstate travel lane. 11 feet is like a typical city travel lane, and 9 to 10 feet is the width of your typical parking space. So 12 feet is wide enough for one car with sort of a lot of comfortable margin on both sides. But it is possible to do narrower, but you're just a lot tighter for the cars pulling in. Staff believes that the applicant has satisfied all sections of the zoning and subdivision ordinance. Therefore, we recommend approval of the subdivision. We also recommend approval of the attached text amendment for the reasons that I indicated, that we require parking. You know, I don't love having driveway cover the whole front yard, and sometimes with townhouses we deal with that whole issue. But unfortunately, because we don't get any VDOT reimbursement for alleys, we don't allow them to be built. So there's just not a lot of other options for folks to provide off-street parking as we require in these neighborhoods. And so somehow there has to be some allowance for driveways to exist. And so given that that's the case, we want to make sure that they can at least build a one-car wide driveway. So I'm recommending approval of that as well. Any questions on this?
Yes, I have a couple of questions, Luke. As far as the amendment, I would like to see us talk, the different provision for the driveway apply only to single-family attached. I think, is there any reason why we would have to attach it to make that change with regard to the duplexes, the zero lot line houses?
No. So the way that I wrote the text amendment is just the simplest way to insert it into the zoning ordinance. Because of the minimum lot widths for those other types of housing, and I'll go ahead and pull up our ordinance here, it won't apply to anything besides attached. Let's see if I can get this up.
I think the second issue I had, and we talked about this, was with looking at this subdivision with the roads, the roofs, and we've got a lot impervious area, is there a possibility of reducing that minimum of 12 feet for the single-family attached lots down to 10 feet
As
for
I
the
mentioned,
driveway?
yes, you could do a 10-foot driveway. It'll just be a little tighter for folks pulling in, yeah. And maybe Ashley and Scott can speak to their justifications of why they would want a wider one. Just quickly to answer your first question, though, Stephen, I've got up here the ordinance right now. As you can see, the minimum lot width for single-family attached is 25 feet. So 25% of that is 6.5 feet. It's not wide enough to drive a car on.
Right.
For all the other types, two-family houses, corner lot duplexes, multiplexes, zero lot line houses, your minimum lot width is at least 50 feet in all those cases. So this provision wouldn't be triggered. It would end up only applying to single-family attached homes. Let me go ahead and, if you don't mind, Stephen, just introduce Ashley Davies. I think you met her during the rezoning, and Scott Collins is the engineer with them. They're the applicant. Ashley, would you mind saying anything about the driveway width or why you prefer a 12-foot driveway?
Sure. Thank you, Luke. Good evening, everyone. My name is Ashley Davies with Riverbend Development, and it's great to be back with all of you after a few months. Thanks for supporting our project. And as you can see, we've got the design underway and everything's coming along. I think in terms of the driveway width, as Luke mentioned, basically, your average parking space is 9 or 10 feet wide, and that really just accommodates the car. And so by having the 12-foot width instead of the 10-foot width, it just gives you the opportunity to step out of your car and you're not stepping into the mud. So it just gives you a little bit of wiggle room as you're getting in and out of there. And I think that is nice. When you have a parking spot, you typically have other parking spots right next to it or a sidewalk that's immediately adjacent. So you're not kind of stepping out into the landscaped area. And I'll also open it to Scott if he wants to add anything about the engineering piece and why we proposed that.
Yeah, certainly. That was Ashley summed it up perfect. My name is Scott Collins, and yeah, it just gives you enough room to kind of get a car parked on a lot and able to get in and out of the car without and staying on the driveway. That's really the key for having the width at 12 feet.
Can I ask Scott a question?
Sure.
Scott, did you all do any engineering studies? I looked at that property and it generally slopes downhill. Any engineering studies with regard to all this impervious area here with regard to water runoff?
Yes, sir. We are proposing a couple stormwater management facilities to capture all the runoff from the site and to detain it. We're detaining on our site before it leaves our site and goes into the creek. So we're detaining below the 10-year storm event and handling it with energy balance on our site, so for flood control. So our proposed impervious area on the site will not increase any runoff from the site into the creek during the storm events.
Now, but you said you engineered it for a 10-year storm event?
Well, that's what it's designed for. That's the 1 year and the 10 year, but also the ponds also hold a 100-year storm event as well. They handle all that, but yes, sir.
Yeah, they'll have to comply with Chesapeake Bay Act and all the typical stormwater calculations. And I believe, actually, am I correct in assuming the site obviously slopes down towards the creek? The main reason that phase one moves up this direction is to try to get to that stormwater pond. initially. Is that accurate, Scott?
Yes, that's correct.
And Luke, one other question then, and I know we discussed that, there's a stormwater pond that's going to be above this project off of, or behind Martin's. Any effect from that?
I'll give that one to Scott as well.
It should not have much of an effect. This property sits well above Martin's. I haven't seen their design on their pond, but I know how that property sits in relationship to this phase of development, and this area sits up well higher by probably about 100 feet for the most part than Martin's. I think our future phase, our multifamily site is lower or at the grade of Martin. So we will have to pay attention to what's going on there when we come in with that development. Yes, sir.
So you're saying we're looking at phase 1 now, and yes, it is above Martin's, but phase 2 is significantly below the Martin's pond.
I think I kind of misspoke. So basically, this portion of the site, we're going to develop in 3 phases. So technically, that would be phase 4. Would be on the site. Yes, sir. We haven't planned that one out yet.
All right.
But they won't
Although
be able to drain
you're showing
into
something on your map, but you haven't completely planned that out.
That's right. It's shaded out. Yes, sir.
You won't be able to drain into that Martin's pond at all, though. I mean,
No.
that's on a separate privately maintained pond. And they'll have to handle all their own
Well,
stormwater runoff.
Frankly, they'd have to pump up to it to drain into it.
I do have one question. Is the pond there, the retention pond, is that on the, let's see, what side is that on the northwest end? Where is that?
This one up here, the northern end?
Yeah, northern end.
Yeah, so that would be closest to Bookerdale.
Is this Bookerdale here? Where is Bookerdale?
Bookerdale is this road coming in right here.
And
Can you all see my cursor?
Yeah. And is this the creek?
The creek is right here.
Right here.
It flows through here. So that would be the low point of the site. Actually, it might be easier to see on the city.
So any waters that come out of there that overflow are going to go in this direction?
Mm-hmm. So excess water the site will have to be graded to funnel into the stormwater holding pond. And then they'll have some other smaller stormwater ponds around the edge as well. And then you'll have still the same amount of water off the site flowing into the creek as before the development. But they'll have to handle any additional runoff created by impervious surface.
So is that monitored? I mean, I'm sure you do to make sure that doesn't, I mean, I know there's some water issues out that way already, you know,
Yeah.
make sure that that's something, you know, we've got wetlands out that way already.
Right. It's definitely very closely monitored. Virginia's close to one of the tightest stormwater states in the country because of the Chesapeake Bay. So
Yeah.
all that stuff is very rigid.
Hey, do we have any other questions?
Questions about the layout or the driveways or?
Are the driveways on grade, Scott, or are they raised up a little bit? Because I know Ashley had talked about stepping out your car, stepping into the mulched area. I was just wondering if they were reduced to 10 feet, would you be stepping off into an ankle breaker?
Got it. I mean, they're up probably a couple inches above the grass. I don't think it's not 6 inches or 4 inches or anything. It's just, you know, typically how the asphalt lot comes together with the grass. It's usually just a little bit higher, but not a whole lot.
Scott, let me ask another question. Or Ashley, one of the two of you, I noticed that the property is currently in sort of early second growth timber. Are you, for your open spaces, are you intending to try to keep that timber in place, the trees in place?
Yes, sir. At this time, the open space areas between the development and the creek the areas that were not disturbing for the pond or for any type of utility work, they would remain. We were not looking to clear that area.
Okay, but I think you're also showing a little bit of open space around, I guess let me get myself oriented right, the southwest parts of the property. But you're all going to try to retain the trees there, which will also impede any water runoff.
Where we can, yes, sir. That's what we'd like to keep the trees where we can.
The common area will have to be owned and maintained by the homeowners association eventually as well. Right. I imagine that you all will hold on to it during different phases of construction, but
That's correct.
yeah.
Okay, any other questions for Scott or Ashley? So I think I can open the public hearing on, and I'm going to do the first one.
Okay.
The public hearing on the zoning text amendment request by Riverbend Development applicant to amend City Code Section 98.5.1.5.8.3, parentheses G, to replace shall not exceed 25% of the lot width with shall not exceed 12 feet or 25% of the lot width, whichever is greater. So I guess if you can see the number on the screen if you want to call in and put in the secret code when prompted. If you have any questions.
And this number was also advertised with the ad in the paper as well.
You didn't get any emails or anything, did you, Luke?
I did not receive any email feedback, no.
Okay, so I'm going to say, should we give it a minute more, or?
This is just the driveways. We can probably we can probably close it.
Okay.
I'll leave this up through the end of the next public hearing as well.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and close this public hearing. And nobody has any questions or comments. We know the staff response. I don't seem like anybody needs any debate. Does anybody have a motion regarding this text amendment?
I would like to make a motion that we pass the text amendment as written by Luke.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, everyone in favor of approving the text amendment to City Code Section 98.5.1.5.8.3.g to replace shall not exceed 25% of the lot width with shall not exceed 12 feet or 25% of the lot width, whichever is greater. Say aye.
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 All not in favor, say nay. Okay, so that motion carries. Now, I don't have to bang the hammer again, I don't think. Okay, so now I can do the second public hearing right away, right, Luke?
Yep.
Okay. So I'm gonna open the public hearing for a preliminary subdivision plat request by Riverbend Development applicant on behalf of Roster Avenue Development LLC for a 220 lot residential subdivision on a 70.687 acre tract at 0 Tiffany Drive, Waynesboro, Virginia, tax map 41-3-112. Okay. See, we'll wait a couple of minutes to see if we have any callers in.
dial the number on the screen, 301-715-8592, and then when prompted, press the meeting number 845-8929-9775, and then the pound key.
I think we can probably close it.
I do not see anybody calling in.
All right, so I'm closing the public hearing. And again, we've kind of already had our discussion. Does someone want to make a motion?
Insert something, Shannon.
Yes.
Do I understand that if we approve the preliminary subdivision plat, there'll be no, this matter will not come before the Planning Commission for approval of a final plat, that they will work with planning staff if there's any tweaking that needs to be done with regard to the final plat?
That's correct. Yeah, there's no discretion to change anything at the final plat stage, so that's generally just an administrative process. We check that they built what they said they would build, and then we approve it. Actually, final plats did used to come to City Council, and it just doesn't make any sense because people are up there saying don't allow this, and staff is telling them you already allowed it, you have to allow it. So then don't make us vote on it.
Okay, do we have a motion to approve the second text amendment? No, the subdivision plat request.
I'll make a motion that we recommend that town council or city council approve the preliminary subdivisions plat by Riverbend Development of the Rosser Avenue Development LLC. But that was 102 lots?
208.
208 lots, I'm sorry.
I second that.
All in favor of recommending to City Council that we approve that they approve the preliminary subdivision plat as described by Steve? All in favor say aye.
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 All not in favor say no. So the preliminary subdivision plat should go to City Council with our recommendation that they approve it. Okay,
Sure.
So now we move on to yet another public hearing on a zoning text amendment initiated by the City of Waynesboro to amend City Code Section 98.2.4.4 to add contractors' offices to the use table and permit contractors' offices by right in the L1, H1, and MXB districts, and to add use standards for contractors' offices to Section 98.4. So is there some discussion we need to have about this, staff?
Yes, indeed. This has turned out to be a little bit of a thorny issue as we work through the MXB rezoning that we all keep talking about. We'll share this. Contractors' offices refers to a whole class of businesses. You have HVAC companies, plumbing companies, electricians, framing windows, doors, all different kinds of like small businesses that do some kind of heavier duty, service or repair work or construction work. These businesses tend to need locations that offer office space, some kind of customer-facing space, meeting space, but also some parts warehousing, some outdoor storage often, and parking for their service and delivery vehicles. Sometimes the vehicles are the main source. For an HVAC company, if their vehicle's out doing the work all day, then they need to mainly park them at night. Others have vehicles that they have parked there during the day that they're going back and forth to work sites. So fairly intuitive, that's the kind of use that we're talking about. That use is not spelled out in our zoning ordinance. Based on some definitions in the back, our zoning administrator believes that they fall under the light industrial category, and right now they're only allowed in the industrial zones, LI and HI. This picture right here is of the Blue Ridge Doors, which is on Charlotte Avenue in the Basic City area, one of the businesses in that area we've been talking about for MXD. It's on the light industrial parcel. This right here is Everett Usler's plumbing business, which is also located in that area. It's got a large garage behind it where it keeps a lot of its vehicles and equipment. So because these are the kind of uses that generally just need a small commercial or industrial building, and they need some flexibility of how they use the space, but they need that LI zoning, and they tend to be looking for lower cost properties that don't necessarily need to be visible on a major corridor. Basically describing the lower Basic City area, and for that reason, many of them have located there. And so rezoning to MXB across that area under the zoning administrator's current ruling there would make all of these businesses non-conforming and would restrict them to LI and HI zoned areas. So the question is this a type of business that we think fits into the MXB zoning, or is it something that we are actually trying to reduce? The way that I looked at it and looked at it with Laura, kind of felt like this is the kind of use that might be good to allow in these zones. They're not aesthetically ideal, the residences, but they're also not nuisance uses. They don't generally involve any noxious discharges or much noise or anything. They're businesses that operate during the day and tend to not, have a lot of activity happening on site. So my proposal is to add contractors' offices as a use, first of all, to make it to spell out explicitly in the zoning ordinance for the sake of the zoning administrator. That would be helpful. But then secondly, to allow it in the MXB zone in addition to LI and HI with some use standards. The same use standards as other industrial uses in the MXB zones. They would not be able to operate at night, would not be allowed to have any generate any major noise or anything. And also that we would only allow vehicle and equipment storage as an accessory use to an office or retail use. So they could not simply park vehicles or that type of thing. They would have to have their actual business location there along with their offices, and then they could park vehicles and other things there. And that they would require everything to be fully screened from view if they did have vehicle or equipment storage there. That's my proposal. Very much open to other ideas about how we work with these businesses. Several of them, if we don't allow them in this zone, in the MXB zone, they will be very vocal and opposing this rezoning. At least one will be is very worked up. So that's what we are dealing with.
Luke, accessory use, can you expound on that a little bit?
Sure. An accessory use is something that is allowed if it's attached to a primary use. For instance, we don't allow daycares everywhere, but we do allow daycares as an accessory use to a church. So if you have an operating church, then that means you can also have a daycare at that church. Or something like a garage is not a primary use. You can't just build a garage on a lot, on a residential lot. But it is allowed as an accessory use to a house. So if you have a house on the lot, then you can have a garage also.
So if they have a business, then the vehicles are an accessory to that business it's located.
Right. But if they don't have a business located there, if they don't have any office there or anything, they can't just park their vehicles there. They can't be the primary use.
Is this going to be restricted to a certain street or a certain area, or is this something that going to be allowed in the middle of the residential section? I mean, is there some limits, some boundaries on that?
Well, that's the question: is do we allow them in? Do we allow them in this MXB zone, which is supposed to be not necessarily attractive next to residential areas, but it's supposed to be at least, not terrible to be next to. Let me see. Am I sharing the screen with the Google Maps on it?
No.
Am I still sharing a different screen? All right. I guess this business is gone now, but there was a mechanical and plumbing company located in this building. To go further down, Charlotte. Here's Blue Ridge Doors. In you can see sort of all those elements. They've got a little bit of a customer-facing office where their business is headquartered, but then they've got garage space and storage space where they've got materials and trucks that are going out. Here's Usler's plumbing operation. Again, he's got an office in what used to be a house, then also has, a large garage with equipment, storage for the business. And you've just got a lot of these small, it's not in this zone, but Zay's Heating and Plumbing is a good example.
What about where that Basic City Luncheonette is? Can you pull that? Does he still have all his trucks out there?
Yeah, we've been citing him and telling them to get him off that. Working through that now. He does not have an actual business located there, so he would not be allowed to have those there. Now, and we would want to think about how we word this, because if he did actually move his business to the property and his business office there, then if he screened it, he'd be allowed to park vehicles there. But then a landscaping business is a little bit, that's sort of they have a lot more equipment than most other contractors. So that's a question there is.
Yeah, that's my concern is that, I think that the businesses that are there should be allowed to stay there. I'm just thinking about because they don't look bad, they don't have a whole lot of trucks, and things that are too bad to look at. But in the future, if somebody comes there and wants to open up a business and they've got 15 trucks, I don't know that that's going to be something that will enhance that area at all. Maybe grandfather in these people that are already here and maybe have special permits for those in the future who want to, or some kind of control over or limit on the amount of accessories trucks, that can be attached to that that business. It just seems like, how do you control that? I don't think it will aesthetically enhance that area at all to have a bunch of trucks and a business with a bunch of trucks around. That's just my feeling on it.
I agree with you.
I would not want to move the people that are there though. Sorry.
You had planned to screen, they would be required to screen the trucks, I assume, with some sort of fencing?
Yeah, the idea was to require screening, which would have to be solid, so screen from view is the wording. It's still not great, or like I said, ideal.
How do you do that for the ones that are there now? Would they have to erect a screen?
If because we can't just kick somebody out of a business by changing the zoning ordinance. So they would be non-conforming. They'd be grandfathered into whatever change happened. If they came in with any kind of site plan, like if they wanted to construct a new shed on the property or something like that, then we could make them screen.
Well, also, if they sold it to someone else, wouldn't they have to come and no, I guess not. But if they abandoned it for 2 years, then they lose their right to do that, and they'd have to come back and bring themselves under the ordinance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, or if they had a change of use, if they had, it was an HVAC contractor, but then sold it to somebody who wanted to use it for something substantially different, like it would still be a contractor's office, but it would be, I'm not exactly sure. There's a rubric that Laura uses that determines when it's a change of use. Yeah. There are certain instances where we can trigger them having to come up to code. Yeah, it's a question that sort of speaks to the heart of this zone. How much is it supposed to protect the residents, and how much is it supposed to try to allow business to happen?
There might
problem
be
with this area.
Safety issue too, with an abundance of trucks, that close to residential areas.
Seems to me we're faced again with a little bit of go big or go home. Like, why rezone it if we're not going to change anything? Like, I'm all for saying let the people who are there stay and say nope to this. if we really want to change the face of it and make it more of a mixed use and support the residents there, I don't think chipping away at what we designed is really the answer. That's just what I think.
I think that's kind of what I'm saying too, is, you know, I feel like it could get out of control. If you don't have some parameters on it, I think who's there is fine. But, you know, there's going to be people with different needs or different ideas in the future that could totally change the whole look there. And, you know, I'm thinking about the residents. Do they want to live amongst that? So I'm in agreement with Shannon, I believe, just to leave it as it is and let them, when they leave, that they couldn't come back into that same capacity. Kind of the same thing about the farm. You know, if you have a farm in the city, it can be a farm until you sell all your animals, and then you can't reinstigate them. Same idea.
Let me talk about this further. If they leave and a similar type business wants to come in there, they still can without the fencing requirement.
Yeah, the exact same type business, came in immediately, then yes, they could continue it indefinitely. Yeah. And a couple of these are actually on light industrial or local business parcels where they're already non-conforming. So yeah,
Yeah, my biggest concern is I'm all for people having a place to open a business. I don't want it to end up like the diner. It looks like every time I go by there, there's another car, another truck, another building, another fence. I don't even think that helps the businesses that are there, much less the residents. So that's my biggest concern is, you know, how do we handle that now so that we don't deal with it in the future?
Hey, Luke, this text amendment that you're proposing, does that address what they're talking about here?
No, I mean, I think they're getting to the heart of the issue, which is just, is this type of use, I think we mostly understand the type of use involved, and is that the kind of thing that we want to allow in this area to try to get business there, or is that not worth it, you know? That it's not, we're not looking for any business of any kind necessarily. So it is a wide, you know, it's a broad category, and it could, you know, it could be something that has a very small office and a lot of trucks, or it could be something that, you know, like Blue Ridge Doors is a pretty nice operation. They've got a little showroom up front and stuff. So it may be something that's worth, try to avoid putting in more conditional use permits, but it may be worth a conditional use permit designation. Sure. Well, we can bring this back and pull it out if y'all think that it needs to be edited more. Or we can just
I kind of
here.
And you know, if we're going to do something, let's not lukewarm it. Let's just go in hot and make it the way we want it. Everybody knows what the rules are.
Yeah, I agree with that as well. I think it's just a question of what is it that we're trying to achieve. You know, this kind of sits right at the balance of, we're trying to achieve two things. We're trying to make these areas we're trying to only bring in businesses that are still somewhat compatible with houses, but we're also trying to open it up to as many of those kinds of businesses as possible. And this is a kind of business that's right on the edge of maybe being not ideal next to houses, but maybe being okay. And yeah, I think it's...
Well, the main additional thing you're asking them to do is to screen their trucks. Is there any other things you might want to have them do? Like screening down the side of their lot?
would need to think about that. Wouldn't be able to give you something easy now.
I'm thinking that if somebody does come in and to replace a business, an existing business, that there should be some, it's the opportunity to limit that number of trucks. I think that's, for me, that's a problem. I don't think that goes with our vision. Lots with bunches of trucks, whether they're screened or not. There are other issues about that many trucks, and I think, noise during the day, or there's, safety issues, but, yeah.
I think we've largely steered away from uses that would require a special use permit. And I think because this one is so on the edge of what we're talking about, that this might be the one place where it's okay to say we could have a special use permit for this. And when we do that, we can kind of limit all the things that we're talking about. I mean, I hate to have special use permits all over the place, but this seems an instance where one could seem pretty appropriate.
Yeah, the kind of thing where, your answer to whether it's admissible is, well, you want to see it first.
Let me ask this question, Luke. I know in the city of Charlottesville that in particular Harris Road and some other streets, the right-hand side going back towards the bypass is pretty much nothing but businesses. On the left-hand side, you got one or two, and then you got a long stretch of residential houses with businesses mixed in with them. How did they write their ordinance to deal with that? Because I know out in the county on Hydraulic Road, you had right on either side of, what is it now? It used to be Centel, the telephone place. I mean, they got a huge lot there, must have 100 trucks in it. How did they deal with that?
I think a lot of that stuff is usually, non-conforming or just sort of gets passed down over the years. I mean, A lot of Harris Road is mostly industrial, but you have, and this is kind of what happened in Basic City too. I mean, Harris Road is very similar to Basic City in that
it is
largely industrial, but in those days, if you were especially if you were a lower income person, you could build a house in an industrial area, kind of some cheap space, and build a smaller house than you could in a nicer neighborhood.
Yep. Yeah, because just one street over, they began some revitalization in that area. They've turned a couple of them houses into little, I don't want to call them bed and breakfast because they're not bed and breakfast, but little coffee shops.
Over on Forest and Rose Hill.
Yeah.
My sister lives on Rose Hill.
So
I'm proposing that we leave it and not let the light industrial happen there, but keep the businesses that are there. Don't kick them out. Any new businesses that come in, there need to be some restrictions on the number of trucks, and we'd have to look at it, maybe special permit, because I think that will make it, I think that will make it easier for people that may want to come in that we're allowing on that, in this mixed use. I believe it would be more inviting them to want to be in that area, if they didn't have to deal with all the equipment from some of these businesses. And you can look at it. I mean, down the road, if it needs to be readdressed, then if this isn't the right decision, we'll know because of the number of requests. We can relook at it. But that's what I'm thinking.
You'd mainly be proposing allowing it by conditional use permit. Then that would accomplish everything I think that you mentioned.
And the conditional use permit would require the submission of a site plan for us to review.
Yeah, and each one comes to you individually. So It allows you, it's the same process as the rezoning, but it allows you to allow this specific use without actually changing the zoning of the property. So you might not want to change the zoning to light industrial and let anything that can happen in light industrial happen, but you're willing to give them a conditional use permit for this use, having seen their site plan and their conditions.
Are there any of these zoning areas that are outside the basic city, the zone we created there, that we might want to make them a by right rather than conditional use?
Not really. I mean, the industrial zones obviously make sense for them. And then all you have beyond that is highway business and local business, which are really supposed to be more commercially oriented. And generally, they're not going to be able to afford sort of highway business parcels. So there's some highway business zoning and some lower value areas.
I'm saying that we could adopt your amendment for contractors' offices and make them by right for the L1 and H1, but not for the MXB, make that a conditional use.
Right, and that would be the same as the current situation, the zoning administrator's current interpretation, but it would just make that clear in the zoning table.
By adding the contractor's office.
Yeah. So I think that would still be valuable to do. And then, the MXB zone, if you wanted to do them by conditional use permit, that would resolve that issue. Sorry, I don't want to cut that conversation short if folks have more.
All right. I just need to know, do we need to have a public hearing about the change, or are we not changing it, or do we need to rewrite it and then have another public hearing?
Well, no, we can go ahead. I think we're still dealing with essentially the same issue that we advertised, so I think we can go ahead and do a public hearing, and you all can propose what you'd like to propose.
Okay.
You all would be initiating the text amendment, so it's up to you to, in this particular case, if you choose not to initiate it, then it will not go to council. So it's up to you all.
Okay, so could we agree on some, how we want to say what we're going to do? That L1 and H1, that they say they're by right in L1, H1, right? So that remains unchanged. It would just be by special use permit in MXB? Okay.
That's what I've heard you all saying so far.
You want me to take a shot? You want me to take a shot at a motion, Shannon?
Sure. Wait, do we need to have a quick public hearing though first, just to be official? Okay. I'm opening the public hearing on a zoning text amendment initiated by the City of Waynesboro to amend City Code Section 98.2.4.4 to add contractors' offices to the use table and to permit contractors' offices by right in L1, H1, and by special use permit in MXB districts to add use standards for contractor's office in 98.4. So I'm opening the public hearing. Do we have any discussion? I think we already discussed it. I'll close the public hearing. Someone want to make a motion?
Let me try that motion. I'll make a motion that we recommend to the town council that they amend City Code Section 98.2.4.4 to add contractors' offices to the use table and to permit contractors' offices by right in the L1, H1 districts and by special permit or conditional use permit in the MX-B districts, and to add the use standards for the contractors' offices to Section 98.4.
Very good. I second that.
I'll second that.
All in favor of what Steve said?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone not supporting it? The motion carries. Okay, so we're good with that. Any other business or commissioners' correspondence?
I have a quick extra thing. I'm going to do the same thing that I did before with you all, and it sort of is related to this contractor's offices thing, but not directly. Just feel out somebody that's, before I make him go through the whole process. This business, wait, no, I'm not sharing my screen. This building, you know, I'm probably familiar with, it's 1800 West Main Street. It's a former auto shop and garage.
Didn't that used to be Bradley's?
Yeah, I think at some point he had. There's been quite a few businesses in there, yeah, but it's mainly set up as an auto shop there. It's been vacant for quite a while. They had a detailing place in there most recently, I believe, and then I think they had a pet grooming. Yeah, that's what that sign is.
Yeah.
There's a fellow who has an electrician business that would like to locate there. He falls under, it depends how we define him, but he really would fall under this contractor's offices type of thing. But I don't want to rezone that property to LI, but it makes sense to me as a use because it is a garage. If he is interested in rezoning to MXB and getting this conditional use permit, what do you all think of that? Or do you think that's not an appropriate location? It's just a straw poll. You're not committed to anything. Just like to not waste folks' time going through the process. People hate it.
It seems appropriate to me because there's no houses around there. This is exactly what we're talking about.
Yeah.
How many trucks does he have?
He doesn't have very many. He's an electrician, so they're just vans basically. But he also has a screened area in the back that he would be.
Yeah.
We can make him keep everything in.
But also, has that going to be affected when the east corridor is redone?
Yeah, my hope, he would just be renting the building. My hope is that eventually this would be too valuable a property for him that, you know, as we get the East Main Streetscape and the multi-use path, and if we get more, you know, Blue Ridge Bucha, Basic City Beer kind of uses out there, that, you know, the buildings like this become more valuable. But that's not the situation right now. There's plenty of these vacant buildings on East Main Street, so at the moment I feel like, you know, not a bad thing to put them in there.
No, I mean, it would keep the building from being, the first thing you see when you come into Waynesboro is a derelict building. I mean, you had the old ice cream shop right across the street. For the life of me, I don't know why they went out of business. It was always cars there. But
yeah, that's why I'm hesitant to recommend a rezoning to light industrial for him at that location for that reason, partially because I don't want to sort of. But the MXB could be a solution.
Yeah.
Also, it's got an apartment above the main level, so light industrial would keep them from being able to use that.
Well, he could have his offices upstairs.
Yeah.
Luke, what about spot zoning?
It's a good question. There is kind of a mix of zoning on that corridor currently. To me, it matches to a certain extent our description of MXB type of areas, so it's a little bit outside of where we were.
Well, but I guess what I'm thinking of, there are other areas around it. Instead of just zoning the one lot, and then you run into the spot zoning issue.
Mm-hmm.
If you zone a bigger area, that may. It looked like is it one big lot or is there empty lots around it?
There's some empty lots around it. So this is the building itself. This is a large empty lot here. And then this is this one's also an abandoned, not abandoned, but largely vacant field tile division. And then you have the old abandoned service station.
So this,
Here. I'm hesitant to say, you know, like I said, we're hoping to get more, you know, AT-oriented, outdoorsy kind of businesses there in the future. I'm hesitant to do a big rezoning, but.
the special permit only pertains to that special situation. So when he moves away,
Right.
it's not any longer, I mean, it goes back to what it was, right? I mean, there's no, the next person would have to apply.
You can put that in as a condition, yes. If you don't, you can either make it so that the conditional use permit goes with the property if the new person comes in and follows all the same conditions, all the same everything, that they can continue using it. Or you can say that, no, we're only granting to this person, this business, and if another business comes in, we have to reevaluate.
That might be appropriate for this particular situation.
Okay.
To just give him the rights, or this electrician the rights for that.
Yeah.
Doesn't the city own a lot between that building and the Tile Visions, Luke?
No, we don't.
Okay,
They're
I just
encouraging
wondered
it,
because I see the city crews mowing the grass there. I thought it was a city lot.
Yeah, I think we take care of some of those trees.
Yeah.
I'm not
'cause
sure.
they
No,
cleared-
we don't own a lot.
Yeah, they cleared the creek bank off back in the fall.
Yeah, there is, there's some stormwater infrastructure in there that we probably
Okay.
dealt with because there's storm sewer culvert running underneath
Okay.
there.
Yeah, I always thought it
That
was a
might be
city
what it was.
lot. Kind of like the old park that's down on the corner across from Basic City that they took all the toys out of but left
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, that's not a city lot either, actually, though the city does maintain that lot.
But yeah, I think to have a business in there would be good because you got that. Although the Tile Vision building is not abandoned, there's somebody living in there because they're putting on a new roof and new air handling units on the roof and all that.
Mm-hmm.
And then right across from that, you got the old 2 abandoned houses that have been abandoned for, God, I don't know how many years.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on down there.
Yeah. It'd be nice to, you know what, in the end, you know what it would be really good for? Information center for the trailhead for the AT.
That is actually in our CIP. It has been proposed several times, but
If you ever get the trail from the tunnel down there, that'd be the perfect location. You got the garages there. You could rent bikes over there.
Parking,
You name it.
Yeah.
Parking is the big thing. Our problem is getting underneath that darn railroad.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, parking is a problem up there at the tunnel too, because people don't know how to park.
No, but if we had that land at the bottom of the mountain, that
Oh
could be
yeah.
a parking lot to ride a bicycle up to it.
Yep.
Yeah, my hope is that in 10 years, that'll be a much more active hub and an ideal spot for something like that, and somebody like electrician or whatever won't want to pay for that property. So it'll be
Right.
Yeah, I read where they had 7,000 visitors in the first 10 days that the tunnel was open.
Yeah. And no place to park. They had deputies over in Nelson County on the other side directing traffic to get them out.
Yeah, because I also know some people live in the area. They said people are beginning to throw trash in their yards, and they ain't happy about that either. So, but I have yet to get up there because the couple times I went to go up there, they're parked on both sides of the road so close you can't get between them to get out. So, but yeah, that would be the perfect place for AT headquarters because what's his name on top of the mountain? He ain't never gonna sell that as long as he's living. Was it Dunleavy?
Bill Delaney.
But Delaney that owns the property up there with the bush-covered Howard Johnsons and all that. I think his son might be waiting for him.
All right, do we have any other business? Or do we need to, do you feel like you have enough discussion on this, Luke, or, okay.
Yeah. I was just feeling it out before I make him pay his fee.
Okay.
And go through everything.
Do we have any other discussion? I just want to let you guys all know that Genghis is ready for the storm. He's got his sweater on.
I just have one question. Bobby, is that a Zoom background or is that a flag hanging behind you?
I'm dedicated, buddy. I've got tattoos on my body for Waynesboro. No, that's your background.
Oh, okay.
I would say, Bobby,
one.
you got a lot prettier for a while.
I got the grandkids. My daughter has surgery tomorrow, so we've got the grandkids the rest of the week. And she asked me to come in there and play Barbies.
All right, well, I think that we can probably adjourn.
All right.
Sorry.
Hey, Luke, thank you guys very much for all the hard work, Planning Commission and zoning and EDA played in getting Amazon landed. That was a great job by you all. Thank you.
Pretty awesome.
Luke, and sometime in the next week or so, if you'll give me a call, let's talk about the spot zoning part of that, what we talked about a little earlier.
Yeah, and I could run that by the city attorney as well if you.
Yeah,
make you
that
more
would be, I'd like you to do that.
Okay, does someone want to move to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I'll second that.
Everyone in favor of adjourning?
All right.
Aye.
Our meeting is adjourned.